Happiness is the title of the program. Bluebirds have long been a symbol of happiness. I know every time I see one, I feel happier. My blood pressure even drops lower. So, and I live in the woods. I'm really surrounded by trees. I do attract bluebirds in the wintertime because they do come to suet and other things, particularly bird that. But then I have my nest boxes way out at the end of the driveway where it opens up, and they do use the nest box. And I've seen them checking it out already. So they have long been a symbol of happiness. So let's get into this. Whoops. I'm going to have to take us back 100 years. A quick review. We're going back 100 years. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wayback Machine.
Yeah, the Wayback Machine. And you got to be a certain age to remember that. Anyway, 100 years ago, things weren't all that great. The last passenger pigeon died September 1st, 1914. This is a bird they used to fly through in flocks of thousands. They were like cedar waxwings. Pigeon Forge is named after them. So they used to be here by the thousands. They would fly through, but we ate all of these. Back before you could run to Kroger's for a chicken, you would go to market and find a freshly killed passenger pigeon and have enough breast meat to eat for your family. So that's what did them in. They were men that traveled the country. They were pigeoners, and they just traveled the country looking for the flocks to shoot the birds. So that's, we lost this one because we ate them all.
Stephen Lund, how large were they then? How large were they?
They were bigger, well, with the pigeons and doves, that's the same group. The doves are the smaller ones and the pigeons are the bigger ones. They were bigger than a city pigeon. It's the best way. I don't know in inches. Look at this gorgeous thing. Probably the most colorful bird we used to have. The Carolina parakeet had died February 21st, 1918, the very last. And oddly, the very last passenger pigeon, her name was Martha, died at the Cincinnati Zoo. They were taking care of her. And that's where she died. And the very last Carolina parakeet died at the same location 4 years later. His name was Inca. And I've seen Martha is on display at the Smithsonian if you want to go visit her remains. I've seen her. And Inca is on display at the Cincinnati Museum. They have a whole memorial arboretum where those two birds passed for the very last time. But can you imagine? This one they think passed away because of habitat loss. They lived in trees. And in that day and age, we were cutting down trees. And also probably feather collecting because they were so absolutely gorgeous. So the last Carolina parakeet died in 1918. I know, we're doing the sad part first, unlike what Hollywood does. Anyway, the last heath hen died in 1932. It was a ground bird. We shot these and ate them. Oddly, the very last one was being cared for in the wild at Martha's Vineyard. Everybody knew Boom and Bill. Ben, and all of a sudden one day he turned up dead. So that was 1932. And my second book, Ghost Birds, is primarily about ivory-billed woodpeckers, but these were, in the 1930s we started waking up. And we're losing birds, what can we do? Well, and if this was a room full of wildlife managers, biologists, ornithologists, shouldn't we do something? Yes. Well, in the 1930s, this was the 5 species of birds that everyone was concerned about. They were called vanishing species, we weren't using the term endangered. But roseate spoonbill, whooping crane, California condor, trumpeter swan, ivory-billed woodpecker. And if you know your bird world, we have saved the top 4. Ivory-billed, and that's what my book's about. My book takes place in the 1930s. The jury is still out. U.S. Fish and Wildlife was thinking about declaring it extinct last year, but there's enough people that say they see the bird that they can't. So that's 1930s. Let's move on to Eastern Bluebirds. They were once as common as robins in the 1800s. Robins, bluebirds, they were everywhere. And 1900, they were in decline because, again, of habitat loss, cutting down forests, and non-native species. We'll meet the 2 baddies there in a minute. In 1920, this is hard to imagine, they were considered rare. Not vanishing, but rare. A bluebird, rare. And oddly, 1926, someone invented the chainsaw, so it was really easy to start cutting those trees down. And you'll know why they were important to bluebirds in a minute. They used, before we were putting up any kind of boxes for them, they would use woodpecker holes. And woodpeckers will drill out a nest hole in a dead tree or a dead branch every time they raise the clutch. They're very tidy. They're the great developers of the bird world, so they leave that opening, and so a male bluebird will claim it, just like they do on boxes. Hi, I'm here. Look at this gorgeous location. It looks to the west. You can see the setting sun every day, dear. And she'll come in and look at it and go, well, you okay. So anyway, so check it out. If you went to our bird courtship talk a year ago, females choose their partners, period. Anyway, so she's checking it out, and part of what they check out is the location of his territory. A male bird, and in this case a bluebird, will claim not only the nest site, but the territory around it. So that's her checking it out. Here, both of them. He's so happy. I got a partner. Wow. Anyway, this is, again, the woodpeckers are the great developers of the bird world. They drill out a brand new nest hole every time they do a clutch. Typically, bluebirds only have one clutch a year. Woodpeckers only have one clutch a year. But it can look like this when they finish. It takes one clutch here because it probably takes so long to dig this out of a dead tree. So that's what it looks like, and that's what a bluebird naturally would want, naturally. These are a couple snags, and they're called snags, that are just dead trees with all the branches off that are near my property, and they become bird condominiums. They're filled with holes, and different birds will use them, including bluebirds. Now here's the hero of the story. I love to find a hero that really got in there and helped. Now, people were putting up gourds and nest boxes kind of singularly around. That was already there. But this is a man named Thomas Musselman from Quincy, Illinois. In 1926, he had retired and was looking for something he was in academia but not a teacher, was looking for something to fill his retirement days, kind of like I'm doing now. And so he started building bluebird boxes and been going around to civic groups and talking about the importance of bluebird boxes, and the importance of putting up a bluebird trail. And that a bluebird trail is, if you've got the property, several nest boxes, it can be in a line or doesn't have to, but 100 yards apart. That's what they like, because the male will claim 100-yard territory around his box. And so he started doing that in 1926 and raising bluebird awareness around Quincy, Illinois, where that notion spread. That notion started spreading around the country and down finally into Tennessee. So that's Thomas Musselman he is credited for building himself and installing himself a bluebird box trail along a country road near his home that had 1,000 boxes. Wow. So, if you're retired, you may say, well, goodness, what am I going to say? I need to get out there. Anyway, where are we at? Native Americans, you can use a gourd. Native Americans were using a gourd. Native Americans had already figured out that bluebirds eat insects and eat the insects that come to their corn. Native Americans grew corn. So you can use a gourd. The problem with a gourd, you can't clean it out. It's not easy to clean out. You can put up gourds also for purple martins, but again, you got to clean them out. Purple martins, you only have to clean it out once a year. With bluebirds, they can do 3 broods. These are the other what's considered secondary cavity nesters. They will use your boxes too. Don't fret it. You want something for your chickadees, your titmice, your wrens, and your tree swallows. Tree swallows, they migrate out, so they're not back yet. But with titmice, I learned they like a box that's really, really high. I would never quite get a titmouse into one of my boxes until I nailed it to the side of my house. It's roughly 15 feet off the ground, and they went to it straight. My neighbor going, what's he doing up there? What's that crazy man putting that box so high for? It's not easy to clean out, I tell you. Anyway, that's the good ones that can use it. I had a friend that lived on the French Broad. He would put up one post with a box facing this way and a box facing this way. Bluebirds would use one and one of the others would use the other. They were fine, but the bluebird doesn't want to share, it wouldn't share it with another bluebird. Hiss. These are the two that you have to watch out for. The house or English sparrow. Our English ancestors missed their beloved sparrows. And so they brought them over, 1851, and they will use an S-Box too. And they're very good at, they're very aggressive. So if you see one of these, use your box. You can either put duct tape over the box for a while to discourage it. And I told a friend this, and she said, but it was, and she called me back later that it was pulling off the duct tape. So they're very, very aggressive. Anyway, with European starlings, the trick's easier. That's why the nest box opening is 1.5 inches. A starling can't squeeze his big old keister through there, but a house sparrow can. So that's one of the important, over the course of the decades, everyone slowly figured out the dimensions it needed to be, and that's one of them there. It needs to be openable, easy, so you can clean it out. Once they're finished with it, they're finished with it. So you clean it all out, and then they come back for a second brood and maybe a third brood. So that's a couple of the handy things about a box, how it was done over the years. We're mad. Move on. Back to olden times, I was curious. I'm a long member of the State Bird Club, and I have all of these migrants, and it's done quarterly by the TOS, Tennessee Ornithological Society. So I dug up the 1939 issue that had the 1938 Christmas bird count data. These were all the bluebirds found in the entire state in 1939. 4 in Knoxville. I had 4 in my bird bath just a few days ago. Anyway, 2 in Norris, 90, Nashville was the hot spot for bluebirds in 1938. 90 in Nashville, and then 10 in Springfield. So we had a total of 106 bluebirds were all counted across the whole state. So that does give you a sense they were in trouble. They were bouncing along, and this again is before nest boxes really came to our area in a big way. Also in 1939. Oh, poor old Dorothy. She didn't want to be in black and white Kansas anymore. She was bored to death. And she was out there singing, "Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly." But they don't fly in black and white Kansas. So, we know the story. She went out, she got whisked away, and then at the end, she was clicking, oh, there's no place I go, there's no place I go. So anyway, that just shows you, even in 1939, we were still longing for our happiness, longing for bluebirds. Now, if you get to go to Oz, you may want to come back home. Anyway, I'd stay a while. Those flying monkeys scared me. When I was a kid, well, we watched it every year. It was on every year. It was always black and white. Then, when I went away to college, I saw a color TV. My gosh, the movie changes the color. Wow. Anyway, move on. This is kind of a graph of the bluebird population over the years. It was bouncing, again, I just covered 1939 and how few were in Tennessee. DDT was starting to be used it was widely used starting in 1942, and that's an insecticide that kills bugs. And we now know that it was even hugely instrumental in upsetting bald eagles. It affected her calcium level. World War II, we weren't focused on our backyard so much, other than protecting it. And so then it started bouncing up. I put in TVA 1968 to 1970. That's the first bluebird box trail in our area. A TVA biologist named Gordon Hall and started installing a bluebird box trail below Norris Dam. If you've been to Norris Dam, you know that. there's a long green space in front. So he's credited for bringing the very first Bluebird Rocks Trail to our area. So even though Musselman started in 26, it finally made it here in the late 60s. NABS is the North American Bluebird Society. This is an incredibly active group. Bluebird societies all over. I've spoken to the state organization. Locally, it is centered in Tellico Village. There's a Bluebird society down there. I've spoken to them in the past. And if you join them, you become a very active participant. That's not right. Thank you, yes. You know, in Jeopardy, they have that question, words with 13 syllables. Give me a break. Give me a break. 13-syllable word, I can't say it. That's something that happens with age. You like to force some words. Anyway, if you join a local Bluebird club, you're invited to put up a trail, you're invited to check the trail routinely, you're invited to open the boxes and count how many eggs were laid, so on and so forth. So you keep notes on everything, and so that's one reason we really started monitoring it, and the Bluebird count has really gone up. Last I counted, we have over 20, or last I checked, over 20 million known or counted bluebirds in the country. So we went from 106 in the state to over 20 million across the whole country. In the 1950s, we were so worried about this, Datsun produced a model car called the Datsun Bluebird. I would look good in that car. It later became the Nissan Bluebird. But my goodness, if I can find one under $45,000 at running, anyway. That is again to show you Bluebird awareness was being passed around. That's what happened, and so we're kind of bouncing up. Okay, now we get to how you can help part. How you all can help. I think many of you were at our last meeting in December. You put up berry-producing shrubs and trees. This is what bluebirds tend to eat a lot of in the wintertime, as do your robins, as do your mockingbirds. You put up cedars, you put up hollies, elderberries, da-da-da-da. The three trees you cut out and don't put up are the two invasive ones, privet and bush honeysuckle. Birds will eat that, but then it's like kudzu. And then the last one is nandina. That's actually toxic to birds. So if you got any of those plants, try to ease them out and put in some of the native trees and shrubs that bluebirds like. So that'll take care of your birds in the wintertime when they're hungry. A bird bath. Now that's not a great photo. I took it with my cell phone, and that was during that 2-week freeze when I was watching my birds 8 hours a day. And I looked out in my heated bird bath. They were coming and going like crazy from it because that was the one source of drinkable water. And I love this photo of three blue guys just sitting there, man, this is great to spend some time around this drinkable water. And they would actually get in and splash around. I wasn't able to get out. But birds are tidy. I said, how can you take a bath that's below freezing? Jeez. But anyway, the best bird in a bird bath is a titmouse. They go caution to the wind. They are splashing and throwing water everywhere. It's like, I should have opened my eyes. I just love to watch a titmouse take a bath. My goodness. Where we at? Suet. I kind of make my own. Out of bark butter, and I mix in some mealworm. Just what was passed around here. I could have been doing in the kitchen, making my own. I didn't know you could buy it. But anyway, I've been making my own, and so bluebirds love suet. Suet is basically a replacement for insects. It's filled with fats and nutrition, so that's why bluebirds love suet. So that's I took that one. This was my great experiment of, we were frozen in for 2 weeks, so we had to come up with something. So I love bark butter, but my feeding station is on my second floor deck. And so it's 12 feet off the ground. and I'm looking out, and I don't have a tree that I can reach and put bark butter on. And I had the bright idea one day of just picking out a log and laying it on the railing and using bark butter on it. So it's not a vertical tree, it's a horizontal tree. Birds went crazy with it. I get all kinds of birds, including the bluebirds. Every morning I have to get up there and paint the bark butter on it, and I sprinkle some mealworms on top of that, smooth it all out, and I get all kinds of birds. I get robins, I get blue jays, I get a little hermit thrush that comes to this. So it is basically a horizontal tree, and if times get hard, you'll probably see me along one of the country roads with my trunk open. I'll be selling my handmade suet logs for $10 each. And in case of emergency, it can go in the fireplace. It's in case we lose our powers. That's where I got mine, from my stack of firewood. But anyway, it worked great. So that was the one fun thing I tried during that freezing. Where we at? Mealworms, they love mealworms. They really do love mealworms. I've tasted them, they're kind of crunchy. Reminded me a little bit of old pork rinds, which a man of my age is not supposed to eat anymore. I don't know if I'm supposed to eat these things. Oh, it's only had 2 or 3. Not a lot, but that's a big bag. It's a handful of mealworms, and bluebirds go crazy. There's other birds will eat them too. So, okay, let's get down to the feeders. That's a feeder I personally built for a friend of mine, Ruth Ann. And so you see it's got the basic dimensions. I added an extra layer of wood just so a woodpecker it makes it harder for them to try to get in there. They might want to use it themselves. And with Ruth Ann, I put a ring around hers too, and that just makes it even harder for another bird to try to tear into it. So, and I made the baffle. I'm from Gatlinburg, you know. That's an old coal, that is a pipe from a stove. I figured out a way to create a donut to hang it on, so that'll keep squirrels, raccoons, and snakes off. That's a predator guard. So that's all that is, and it works beautifully. And yes.
So why green? Any rationale behind that?
Ruth Ann painted green.
Oh, okay.
To match her house. That's something I never would have thought of. Oh, you wanted to match the trim of your house? Oh yeah, that's kind of a woman thing. You just didn't like the black. Anyway, let's move on. What is it? You can find dimensions if you got a workshop, and still, I used to have a workshop. I had to retire from it. I was afraid I'd lose a finger. That's another thing. As you age, you just have to back away from dangerous things. Anyway, so you can find the instructions online, or you can buy ones the easier way. And again, just like the old days, when it was a tree and a woodpecker, a male comes in first to claim the cherry box. He's not only is he claiming the box, he's claiming a 100-yard circle around it. And if he is unmated, bluebirds can stay together for a few years, but if he's unmated, an unmated female might check him out. She may say, well, he doesn't look too bad. It's got that nice blue, but I like your box, and I like where you have it, and so she will, that's how part of how she decides. And so this one here, I have read that he may bring a piece of dry grass and show her dry grass. Well, duh. And they love pine needles. If you have a pine tree that sheds needles, they adore, she really loves pine needles. She will build a nest, but he guards the whole location. He's not a deadbeat. He'll guard, how many bird dads are deadbeats? Not these guys. Anyway, he'll guard the location so no other bluebird will come in too close and take the insect she wants to be around, or the food, or the suet, or whatever. But she'll build the nest. They can have 2 to 7 eggs at a time. She's busy. And up to 3 broods a year. Now, I don't know how many often. I usually get 2 broods, and I think Ruth Ann tells me she thinks she gets 2 broods. But up to, and that would be a maximum total of 21 eggs. So anyway, that's the potential of what's out there and why. we solely, any given songbird has a 50-50 chance of living the next year. The hardest time for any songbird is winter. Finding food and finding it every day in the wintertime. Think about it. If you're a song, now me, I walk to the refrigerator. Now me, if I was a songbird, finding enough food one day to survive the night. Finding enough food, so that's the downtime. So the more you can do to help your birds, you're the hero here. All of your birds are coming in, they'll eat suet, they'll eat mealworms, they eat seeds. I even throw seeds out on the deck for my ground birds, ground feeding birds, the doves, the white-throated sparrows, those birds, because they're pecking around on the deck looking for seeds on the deck. So anything, wintertime is the hardest time for birds of prey too. Getting through winter, I'm lucky I have a freezer sometime and a refrigerator. This past year I was getting pretty low. You dig to the back of the cupboard. Why the heck did I buy this? Cream corn. Ugh. Well, okay, sounds good. Anyway, move on. This, if you happen to see if you think it might be, but remember, starlings can't use the box. They cannot. They can't squeeze in, but a house sparrow used to be called an English sparrow. They can use the box. You know what they look like. And if you think one may be coming and going from your box, and you open it and check, they're different, the eggs are different. It is perfectly fine, they're not protected in any way, to take those eggs out and throw them away. It is perfect, I know, every time I say this, people, oh, I can't do that. Anyway, it's perfectly fine if you know it's house sparrow and it's nestlings begging for food. They're not protected. Starlings aren't protected, house sparrows aren't protected, city pigeons aren't protected, and there's one more I'm trying to draw a blank on. I knew I could look, what is it?
Eurasian collared dove.
Eurasian collared dove. I knew my assistant back there would remember it for me. Okay, anyway, but most people can't. You can't reach in there and take it and throw it away. Mother, that poor lady, or the young ones, but you can, they're not protected. I'm just saying, I'm giving you permission. You can push it back on me, that's fine. Anyway, this is, they incubate 19 days. These are bluebirds. Incubate for 11 to 19 days. And initially, Dad is not only during the incubation, Dad's bringing his mate food constantly. Bringing her food. And then when they first hatch, he's bringing her food and them food. She's protecting the brood from any possible predator. Luckily, you have a predator guard, so there won't be a possible predator. But after a while, then they're like teenagers. And so Mom and Dad both, and this is kind of general true, all the birds out there, as they age and they grow very quickly, Mom and Dad are both feeding. So that's 11 to 19 days of incubation. Then we get this. And like I said, Pop's gonna bring him food because he's a good guy. And then later, Mom will start to help and bring food too. And they're looking at each other like, this is hard. Nobody ever told me raising kids was this difficult, but it is. I'm gonna miss them when they're gone. When do you think they're gonna be gone? Anyway, typically the nestlings leave in about 3 weeks, 17 to 21 days. They're hopping around. Eventually they follow Mom and Dad away from the box. They don't come back to the box because Mom and Dad knows they're not 100% safe on the box, even if you have a predator guard. So they'll fly to the bushes and the young ones will follow. And that's where they'll stay. So after you've not seen any activity for a day or two, clean it out. Either that same pair may come back and re-nest, or another pair may come and may start all over. So or a chickadee may say, okay, it's my turn. You never know, but you don't, just clean them out as soon as you can, as soon as you're 100% sure they're no longer being used. I think we're done.
Wow.
That's a record. Any part I need to go back over? Truth is, I never quite know. I sit at home and practice this, thinking, I do.
Is the west facing thing really important?
I've read different things. I've read people say it doesn't matter. the later in the season, the wet facing, I don't have an honest answer other than I've read most often it doesn't matter. But if you wanna put it up where, truth is, you put it up where you can see it. You're gonna be sitting on your back porch or deck or whatever, you wanna be able to see it coming and going. Cause that's what's gonna give you, oh my gosh, Pop's busy, she's got young ones. And again, if you wanna go check, you can. If you open, to check the eggs, if they're bluebird eggs, oh, you can count, it's okay. And close it, mom will probably leave and fuss at you, but she comes back. And if you're part of the Bluebird Society, you routinely do that. You're required to count eggs just to get a sense of the successfulness of the nest. All the eggs will not hatch, they're not all fertilized. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so just to be sure, you said that they wanna have a territory, wide territory around the male. So don't build two bluebird things close to each other, right?
Not really, 100 yards. Now, if there's an outbuilding between them, or one on one side of the house and one on the other side of the house, that's kind of a
But
block.
not like 15 feet. from
You'll
each
probably get bluebirds in one, and one of the other speaks chickadees, no doubt, in the other. Chickadees are always looking for a place. Chickadees are, whoa. So chickadee nests will have moss in it. When you start to clean it out, oh my God, it's full of moss. This was a chickadee nest. So now, if they're close, they'll probably both be used, and the one you gotta watch for is that house sparrow. Again, you may not have the heart to rip it out if they're in there, because, anyway, house sparrows tend to claim several, they're like wrens. They'll claim several locations and bounce around until a female goes, I like this spot best, and so that's the one. But anyway, yeah, you can have it, and that way you can sit and watch both boxes and watch one of the other species in one box and a bluebird, and they tend to get along fine. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
What's the distance if you were gonna do a trail?
100 yards apart. That's a
100 yards
football
apart.
field.
Okay.
That's the magic number they've come up with over the years. If you start a trail, roughly 100 yards apart. Questions? Wow, yes?
One box planted.
What time did they start laying their first batch of eggs?
Typically they start the 1st of March, but right now, he's probably claiming the box, because he may have been claiming it since October. I mean, he knows there's not that many boxes on this neighborhood, so he may be bouncing around early, but typically the nesting starts the 1st of March. Okay? Yes?
Is it best to keep it away from a tree line?
Is it best, if you put it close, yeah, they like space. If you put it close to a tree, is it best to keep it away from a tree line? As a rule, yes, they like space. They feed in grass and open country. If you put it close to a tree line, you'll probably get chickadees. Question?
Actually, I have two. Is there like a height that works best for the?
A height that works best, whatever you can look into.
Okay. And
It's
then,
really kind of important you check it out and can clean it out. So roughly your eye height.
okay. And then,
They're fine with that.
Like, would they want like shadier or sunnier spots?
They don't really, well, I would, sunnier, because you do like to be away from the trees. And the one box that I showed earlier that I helped a friend put up, it's right out in the open and it gets plenty of sun. Question? Yes?
General question, I've got a lot of feeders with various types of food, and I've noticed a big drop off on the number of birds, but I've also noticed that there seems to be like a whippoorwills hanging around. Do they run off the other birds?
Whippoorwills? This time of year?
I think I'm calling it the right one, whippoorwills, yeah.
Whippoorwills are migratory, they
Well,
typically,
these are gray and
Probably
bobwhites.
a mockingbird.
Mockingbirds.
Mockingbird.
it's probably a mockingbird.
Did they
Mockingbirds do.
Yes.
They're pushy.
Yeah, they'll run. That's what I. Same thing's happening in my yard. I've got cylinders that have been out since probably over a month, and they usually are gone in a couple days. And I've got one mockingbird they're very territorial, and they will run off everything. They keep it. I have one on my deck and one in my yard, and he just goes back and forth. One thing that you can do, there's really no like perfect answer for that, but one of the things you can do is put up just get a cheap suet in a cheap suet cage and hang it somewhere away from the rest of your feeders, because they're insect eaters, berry eaters, and they'll eat suet. And then let him find that and defend that as much as he wants against whoever he wants, and let him have that suet feeder, and that will help him. It will help leave him or leave the other feeders for your other birds. So that's one option. The other option is to separate your feeders out so that they're not in the line of sight of one another, so he can only defend one of them. Or the third option is to just let him go empty for a couple of weeks and he'll move on and then put him back out. That's about the only three options. But I'm having the exact same problem in my yard, and that's exactly what it is the mockingbird.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I had that problem last winter, but not, I have mockingbirds that visit, but they're not as pushy as they were last winter.
Yeah, this is the first. Usually I have a robin problem. This year it's the first time I've had a really nasty mockingbird.
Questions? Well, yes.
Okay, I'm seeing 4 or 5 bluebirds come into our dogwood and then go to the feeder. And they seem to line up in a certain order. And one will come in and then fly off, and the next one will come in and eat and then fly off. And they seem to rotate. Is there a pecking order within Bluebird Society?
Did we hear the question? Is there a pecking order within the Bluebird Society? I don't know what there is, but there is in Chickadee, so I'll say, yeah, possible, where the seniors, they get first choice. Well, that's Pop, let him go eat. He's not gonna make you much harder. You know, we seniors deserve a little. Yes, question?
Would there already be bird species that are looking for places to nest during this time of year? Because yesterday I saw a couple of pileated woodpeckers that looked like they were doing that they were looking for a place to nest.
Yes, do our other birds starting, mourning doves are, mourning doves just can't stay away from each other. But yes, birds, February is the month your backyard birds really start pairing up. And my mourning doves, I used to have a whole group, and now they seem to come in pairs.
Yeah, I actually saw a mating ritual between two. I think I actually saw a mating ritual recently between 2 mourning doves.
Mm-hmm. So mourning doves, love them. They can have 6 broods a year. They love to be parents. 2 eggs at a time. I know. Anyway, another question. In the back way, over here.
Yeah, how far away should your bluebird house be from where you're feeding, and other birds as well?
I think, I don't think it has to be 100 yards. Of course, again, I'm going by by experience, what I've witnessed. But yes, away from it, because the male bluebird may get really huffy about all the
So it's
action.
not just 100 yards from another bluebird, it's 100 yards from
Yeah,
any
I don't
bird?
think from personal observation, I don't think it needs to be 100 yards from your feeder stations.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't really like that congestion around your feeders, that in and out traffic. So like mine in my yard is probably, I don't know, maybe 50 feet away, and they are perfectly fine with it.
Okay.
So yeah, just like a lot of people want to hang a box and then hang a feeder on the other side of the shepherd. That's a no-no. That's
Ours
just,
it would be, it's like 25 feet away.
yeah, you're probably, I mean, if you don't see any activity to it, see if you can't move it just a little bit further away. But yeah.
I'm getting a photo. If I can. Did you take a photo, Kim?
I did.
Oh, okay. This isn't necessary, but I did it anyway. Okay. Any other questions? We got a few more minutes before they turn this back to a shop, yes?
I have a comment. If you're wanting to make a bunch of birdhouses, or you just wanna do it with your grandkids or your kids, fence pickets are the right size. They're already cut, so you only have to do either end. I did it with many classes of students for years and made bluebird houses.
Wow, I
So
didn't
what,
have
I
times,
don't
but
understand
no,
what.
that's perfect, okay.
Yeah, and they have cedar too, so you
And
can
all you have
get
to do is
cedar
board a
ones.
1.5 inch
You
hole.
don't have to finish it, you know.
Any
Do you know,
questions? Yes.
Are they picky about the seasoned houses? We put up wooden houses before and the chickadees wouldn't go in them for the first year, like cedar houses is, I don't know if it smelled too much for them or what, it's like they had to sit outside for a while, or bluebirds is picky because I need to replace my house. But not
And you
bluebirds.
wanna replace your cedar bill.
Well, no, it's a wooden one, but it was older and it had replace it.
Well, not necessarily, but maybe. You don't have to try. I'm usually asked, do you need to paint it? No, because the box over the course of time starts to look like a tree. It develops that gray weather look.
Yeah, it's.
I've never actually used cedar wood to make a bird nest box, so I don't know. I always use pine.
I mean, my chickadees didn't like a house when it was rainy.
Really? Fascinating. Well, to us, it smells. But birds have a very, very poor sense of smell. So I don't know. I just honestly don't. That's conjecture. Any, way in the back? Yes, you.
Yeah, just a quick question. So with the birdhouse, for chickadee or blue, do they have to go on a pole with a predator protector, or can you put them on the tree?
You can put them on the tree, but you really need a predator protector. The best thing we used to do at IAMS is put it on a tree, but go to hardware and buy sheet aluminum that wraps around the tree, kind of like a belt, and they can't scratch up it. A snake can't climb it, but it depends on where you want to put it. It's easier on a post, but you can do a tree, but raccoons.
If you do put it on a tree, that's what this is. It's the predator guard.
Bingo.
Probably can't see it from back there, but around the four edges on over here on the front is sharp. So what this will do is it for the snake, when they go up, it scratches that tender underbelly. So it is a predator guard against snakes. It also with how much it extends it out and it being sharp on the edges, it makes it harder for raccoons to get, because raccoons will reach down and they're just like reaching blindly. They're just pulling stuff out. So this will help keep their little arms from being able to reach it. And the other thing too, this will not be successful if you're not cleaning out your box. Because bluebirds will keep building on top, which is gonna raise up that nest higher and higher to the hole, which is gonna make it easier and easier for them to reach in and get it, or snakes to get in. So make sure you're keeping the box cleaned out so that it's keeping that nest low enough that this is effective. But this is what you need if you're putting it on a tree. There you go.
From the expert, and look.
Good job.
Davis, I just now noticed this.
The baffles?
Yes, my goodness. And I took the trouble of making one out of an old stovepipe. What's that? It wasn't green. Yeah, it wasn't green. Anyway, any other questions? Let me look, we got 5 minutes for more questions, Jeff.
Not a question, but our feeder post is a 4x4 treated post. I took an old gutter and wrapped it around it, and I put grease on it. So raccoons left it alone. They don't like getting that grease on their paws, and that was the end of it. No more
That would work
raccoons.
with everybody here. You put it on a 4x4 post and took an old gutter and wrapped around it. They can't scratch the way up, and then greased it.
Took care of
Most
it.
raccoons don't want to climb a grease pole, no. Neither do I. Mom taught me that a long time ago.
So on your $10 butter loaf, did you not have a problem with squirrels?
That's why I use hot pepper, bark butter.
Oh, hot. Think about that.
That we conveniently have here.
I have went through, this is my 3rd tub this winter. Yeah, that's what I used it for. I put on my lawn, and it's squirrels, birds don't care. Birds don't really they don't have a good sense of smell or a good sense of taste. The birds are eating it fine, but that squirrel will go. But, squirrels are afraid of everything. And they get scared, and their tail goes jerky. What is this? What is this? And they back off. Anybody, quit.
Do you refrigerate that?
I don't, should I?
No, it's too hard. No, if you refrigerate it, it's kind of, the consistency of it is kind of like,
Peanut butter?
yeah, it's kind of like peanut butter. And then, so if you put it in the refrigerator, it's just going to harden it. And then
You can't
once
spread it when
Yeah,
it's
once you
hot.
let it thaw out, it's just going to change the whole consistency of it. So
Yeah,
no.
I just layer it on like peanut butter.
Gonna be
But
outside
be
in the sun
careful
anyway,
if you
or-
get it on your fingers.
Yeah.
Humans have a good sense of taste, and somehow actually.
Then you touch
It is indeed hot.
Yes.
Any other questions? We got 2 minutes.
One
Yes.
last question.